could be waiting a minute if we're gonna let this beat drop. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in Congressman Byron Donalds. Let's see. Hopefully, we got him this time.
Hey,
Congressman.
Sonnie, how are you?
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much for rocking with us. We just had a little bit of technical difficulties. All right, so welcome to Sonny's Corner. By the way, excuse my manners. I know your time is precious, so I want to make sure we get the most out of it. Um, So I wanted to talk to you most pressingly about the recent debt deal that just passed through the House, mostly with a lot of Democratic help, passed through the Senate, and Joe Biden's signing. So, what did you think about that? About the compromise that came about in terms of this debt deal?
I mean, Sonny, I just think it's a bad deal. I don't think that it's going to really help the country um, pay down debt. Like, we got a real spending problem. And, I think, people look at Washington and they'll say, like, oh, man, but you guys are always spending money. But the problem we're starting to really get to is at 32 trillion in debt, the debt's now bigger than our economy, and it keeps growing. In about a decade, we're going to be, as some estimates are, 50 trillion. Some estimates are 54 trillion in debt. That's in a decade. And the country's not going to be able to really handle that. And really, who it really hurts, it hurts poor people the most. It hurts, retirees, people on fixed incomes. Those are the people that are really going to suffer. Like, if you're wealthy, you have escape velocity. You can figure some things out. But, with that kind of a debt burden, what it really does, it destroys purchasing power. Already kind of seeing that with inflation, that it'll make matters worse. It'll slow our economy down. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm opposed to it. I just think that we have to get serious about cutting spending. And this bill, although it kind of freezes spending, there's a minor cut in spending. It doesn't put us nearly on the path we got to get to stabilize our country.
When you talk in terms of who is going to hurt the most, I think one of the biggest groups that this deal is going to hurt is the youth. And I'm talking about the ones that are just coming up now, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, who lived through seeing their parents go through a big decline, and now they're coming into their adulthood, and they're seeing this massive decline and not seeing a future for themselves moving forward. I don't see Republicans really engaging and understanding that's a group that is going to be hurt and is very, very much in line to have their ideologies challenged if conservatives don't meet some kind of threshold to get them interested back in capitalism, back in entrepreneurship, back in ownership. If they don't have some kind of mode as the defenders of capitalism, I'm really scared we're going to use that. We're going to lose that, and it's going to start with not being able to capture this generation of youth.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, it's one of the things I've been really critical of the Republican Party of ever since I've been a Republican, is that, they don't really take the time to talk to, engage, explain, like, what these different, not even policy positions, but philosophical positions, what it actually means, for the country, for the future, and what it means for every, demographic group or economic group or even age group in the country. Like, we don't really do that. It's always bothered me. So, like, one of the reasons, why I do as much media as I do is really to just kind of get the word out and the message out about what we're trying to accomplish. What are the obstacles in the way? We're trying to separate what's real from what's not. I'll tell you a funny story. Like, when I first when I first got into politics, I would turn on, like, cable news trying to figure it out, and it never made sense to me. It wasn't until I started reading, about political philosophy did current politics make sense to me. And so I always found it that the best way to kind of get people to understand conservatism is you got to talk about it, and you have to talk about it in a plain way. Like, you could talk about the in and outs of policy, but if you're not really explaining what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go, people are just going to miss it. And it's not because people aren't intelligent. It's just that they're not focused on politics. Politics is not their thing. Their thing could be cars, their thing could be sports, their thing could be their job, their thing could be their families. But politics is just not their thing. And so you have to try to find a way to communicate that message to them.
That's something that is definitely a shortfall within the Republican Party, and especially when it comes to how they look at black outreach. But I'm going to save that because I want to talk about that as far as
All right.
looking forward into 2024. Um, but you see a Republican Party right now, I think, that has a chasm in it. Um, Whether you want to separate in terms of saying just establishment Republicans and conservatives, grassroots conservatives, whatever. It is a chasm in between. And I think we're coming to a point where you have like the old guard of the Republican Party that wants to be the policeman of the world, that wants to have bipartisanship at whatever cost with Democrats. Like that old model of the Republican Party, and I think you see a younger, more diverse of thought population coming up within the conservative movement that is really questioning everything that the old guard has done. And I think that it is going to take a fight within the Republican Party, an ideological fight within the Republican Party to get this party to actually represent conservatism. And if we don't, then we're not going to have kind of the viable machine in place to fight what Democrats are doing.
So I guess I probably say I'm part of like the new guard that's having that internal fight. But
No,
I
but
don't
see,
think
this is
the
the
one thing
thing
I would
about
say,
you. This
one
is
thing I
what
would
makes
say,
you
okay, I'm
different.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is what makes you different. You're not having it internally. And this is my problem with a lot of black Republicans. You're not having it internally. When you do a lot of your interviews or like your press conferences, the most recent one you did, you are doing it in front of everybody for everybody to see. During the leadership fight, you did it so everybody knew what you were doing
Right.
and that it had reason and that it had purpose. And I think that if you continue to infect those around you with that spirit, then I think that it's definitely different than what most black Republicans do.
Oh, that part, yeah, I agree with you on that part. And the thing about it is because frankly, we don't have a lot of time. And the way I look at politics is if you're not making waves and in some respects breaking eggs, then you're really not doing much. I joke with some of my colleagues, especially after the January speaker fight, is that, I break things, but I'll put them back together. Trust me, I'll put them back together, but I'll break them first. And the reason why is because our party's got to have a shift in mindset. I don't really think it's an ideological shift. It's much more of a tactical and strategic shift. We have members who they're like, well, even this debt deal, they were like, Byron, we think it's a good step. It's a step in the right direction. And I'm telling them like, man, this ain't no step. This is like you tiptoed. This is a baby. This is a baby's like little crawl. Like you didn't really do what you say you're doing. And so like, let's not just do this behind closed doors. If we're going to be honest, let's just be honest in front of the people. If we clash, then we clash. If you have a problem with something that I said, then let's talk about it face to face and let's just iron it out, because, I'm not here to like, make a career and stuff like that. I'm here to get the job done. Like right now, I'm in Pensacola, Florida, right? I'm speaking to a group of Republicans tonight. My 15-year-old son is in Southwest Florida. He's playing in a basketball tournament. And if it's just what I want to do, me personally, it's just to see my son play basketball and watch him grow. But I know that, there's a mission in front of me that I have to go accomplish. So it means I got to leave my kids sometimes, and that really hurts. So I'm not here to waste time. Like, I just want to get the job done. And I think that is when people start to really see that you can be out front, you could be active, you can really stand on principle, and people will reward you for that. I think it helps my colleagues really understand that they could take these hard stances to help turn the country around.
And just, anecdotally speaking, it helps a lot of young black conservatives realize that they can do the same. And we don't have a lot of role models that we can kind of look up to and be like, okay, that's how you can handle yourself and really, be assertive, but also know what you're talking about, being well versed, having context, being able to answer questions from multiple different sources. Like when you can put all those things together and give an example, I think it does a lot, especially as we are looking at, and I've been one of those people that have been telling the Republican Party, and this is why I won't call myself a Republican. I've been telling the Republican Party for the last 10 years that the black male vote is up for grabs. Like it's up for grabs. Like if you go to them and you talk to them about economics, about capitalism, about growth, about ownership, and take back the word equity and what it actually means to have equity in being able to control what happens in your community, what's passed, what's not passed, so on and so forth. Like if you go to black men and you deliver them this message, you can get generational ideological change in one lifetime. Like not even in a lifetime. I believe that if we actually did it and we did it right, it would not take many election cycles to prove its worth. And that was 10 years ago. So think about if we had started then, as opposed to looking at it now and saying, oh yeah, they are up for grabs. Let's do what, So to me, like you said about not having time, I don't think that the Republican Party has time, and especially when it comes to votes that are up for grab, like black men, to waste it not going full throated at getting those votes.
Hey, so what's funny about what you said? So a friend of mine, I got friends on the other side of the aisle from when I was in the state legislature and whatnot. And so a friend of mine said to me one day, they go like, our party's in trouble, talking about the Democrats. And he was just basically like, we're losing black men, like fast. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I know. I said, the problem is my party doesn't know how to get them. And we both kind of chuckled about it. But you're absolutely correct. I was talking to a New York Times reporter, and he asked me about, why did I feel that, my message or a conservative message was appealing. And I said, because growing up in New York City, Brooklyn, New York, when I was growing up, everybody was hustling. Like we were about trying to get money. Like some dudes were doing it illegally. Some dudes are trying to do it, on a side hustle. Some dudes are doing it legit. But everybody's whole mindset was, we're trying to get money. We're trying to build something. You're trying to have something. You're not trying to live the life. And it's no disrespect to my mom. She did the best that she could, but I wasn't trying to live her life. I was trying to live a better life. I was trying to take advantage of what's in this country. No matter if you're in my way or you're trying to help me, I'm trying to take advantage of it all and build something. And that essence is really in black men, and it's really in black people. The problem is that,
hey, you need to cut that as a campaign ad for Trump. You need to take what you just said and cut it as a campaign ad, because I don't understand why this is so hard. You just did it. I don't understand why this is so hard. Why the Republican Party cannot see capitalism, why they cannot see conservatism, why they cannot see an entire voter base. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why they don't see it or cannot relate and actually reach out. And that just leads me to think that they don't want it.
Well, now here's what I will say. I think, knowing the people who are in the apparatus, they want it. They just don't know how. And then the other piece is these consultants, man. Like I've never really been a fan of political consultants. Like I have a consultant, he does a good job. But political consultants, their view is everything has to be a 30-second ad. And that's because they make a lot of money off 30-second ads. So I understand what their logic is. And from a political standpoint, candidates, we're products like anything else. We're Pepsi or we're Coke or we're Nike or whatever. So product placement mostly starts with television ads first and foremost. But then there's a ground game, a ground activity that has to work with that. And Republicans just don't know how to do it. They never understood how to do it. And in some respects, there was never anybody around to teach them. And so, what I tell a lot of groups is, look, the number one place you should deal with community centers and black pastors. I said, just go sit and listen to them. Like, you don't have to go in there with your 10-point plan. The better thing is to not come with a plan at all. You want to go and listen and hear what they have to say and just have the meeting, listen to them. You just have the whole thing. And then you say, thank you for your time. Can I come back? And then you come back and then you listen to them again. And at the end of that second meeting, then you can start talking about principles, not candidates, principles, policy. And then when you build that relationship, when the candidates come along, then your candidates can run under the work that you just did. But the party doesn't do that. The party sets up these coalitions like in September of a presidential cycle, thinking that's going to get the job done. But at that point, it's too late. That's like asking a girl out a week before the prom. Bro, she already got a date. Like you got to do your work early if you're trying to see her at prom. So.
Okay, I'm absolutely loving this, right? So, okay, so we're looking at, and I want to bring you into 2024 and looking forward,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I think first we have to look back for a minute because Trump had the opportunity to capture black men, and honestly speaking, Trump has the ability to capture black men like better than even you would have the ability to do so, right? He has become a cultural icon, right? He has become like a part and fabric of our culture because of the way he carries himself, because he is a little pompous, because he is a little, stuffy chested when it comes to his own image. Like those things don't make him unattractive to black men. Those are things that black men say, I want to work to get to that point. I want to work to be at Trump International. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Right.
that bond that he had with just the culture, no matter how the left tried to twist it or turn it, it was still there for the taking. And you could see all throughout his administration, even if you take Kanye out of the equation, he still had an ability to connect, even through political, power pushing with getting some people back home, but he still had a way to connect with the culture. I don't think he's lost any of that. And it just becomes a matter of him saying that he wants it. So do you think that he is going to make like a call for it this time to say, no, this is what I want, the black male vote, and really make it targeted?
Like, I think so. I'm not going to speak for him, but I think so. But I know
Okay,
I'm going to tell
then
him.
do you think
But
he
hold on, but
should?
let me finish this. I'm not going to, I can't, I don't want to commit for him.
That's
What
why I
I'm
said, do
telling
you
you
think
is,
he
do I think
should?
he wants the black male vote? Yeah. Knowing him, man, he wants every vote. Like, that's the way he is. Like, this is what has made, in my view, the party kind of shift a little bit, because Trump is not afraid to just break barriers and be like, well, I'm going to go get this. And the way he is, he'll be like, and I'm going to get all the votes. He's not I want 5%. He's like, I want them all. I think strategically, previous campaigns and really the party, they don't know how to do that work. So you have a guy who's a media mogul, real estate mogul, et cetera, coming into the political sphere, being like, all right, well, let's go get that. But the machine isn't built for it. I think that he wants to do that. I'm going to tell him, and I tell the team. I was with Ronna McDaniel 3 days ago. I tell her the same thing. Ronna, this is what the game plan's got to be. This is what you got to go do. Let's go do it. If you're in, I'm in. I'm prepared. Let's go. I think he definitely wants to do that. I think with respect to black men, we kind of have, we got a swag. We want to have a swag. We have, you call it machismo, arrogance, whatever it is. We have that. We see that in him. Like, you gave the lyric. I always joke with my friends, man. They're like, man, where are you? I'm like, man, I'm at the Trump International. Ask for me. But we know that culturally, that's how a lot of us came up seeing him and viewing him. But in politics, media has done a really good job of just, man, demonizing him, casting him as he's something, when literally 10 years ago, media loved him. Now they hate him.
But see,
And I
here's the
think that
thing,
he's got
though.
to find out a way to push through that. And
The
I think there's
left
people like
wing,
myself who want to help him
like
do that.
this goes back to the point I was making. No matter what they try to do, they can't break it. So it gives like the equivalent of Dave Chappelle. Yeah, they try to cancel Dave Chappelle, but you can't cancel Dave Chappelle. They
Right.
try to cancel Kanye, but you can't cancel Kanye. It's just certain people that have become so ingrained you can't cancel them. And I think Trump is like that with black men, especially. The left can say whatever they want to say, but black men don't trust the left. The black men don't trust the leftist media. Black men understand, they know, they see clearly. So that's not the biggest hindrance to this conversation. And I think you hit the nail on the head about what the biggest hindrance is that the right doesn't know how to do it. And instead of
Right.
just admitting that they don't know how to do it, they do things like shoot for a couple percentage points around the edges. You know what I'm saying? How Trump will say, I want all the votes, not just 5%. No, GOP's goal is, if we can take 5% here, if we can get a percentage point there, that's not a plan for victory. Like, that's not a plan to win. And I think that if Trump is going to have any kind of movement in 2024, he has to have one that is so big, so just clearly dominant that it cannot be questioned. And I think that only way you're going to get that is if you actually get a new voter base in. And I think that
Well,
voter base could be black men.
look, I want it to be dominant, but some of the people I work with, they're not going to care how much he wins by. It's really a sad indictment of where politics is right now. I talk with a lot of different groups. I try to talk to college kids a lot too, right? And the one thing I tell college kids is that we're so tribal in politics now. It's really about heads I win, tails you lose, and that's I really think the country can't survive like this. Like, it's going to require people to be like, all right, look, I don't agree with you on these things, but on these four things, okay, we can get there, and we fight it out during elections. But at the end of the day, you're still a human being. You know, you're a human being. You're an American. Like, I'm trying to win. I'm competitive, Sonny. Like, I want to win, but I'm not trying to win to the point where now I'm trying to eviscerate who you are as a human being. Because
Yeah,
if that's what politics becomes, the country's over. Can't
it
survive
is.
that.
And I think that it's very, very disheartening when you see a lot of that rhetoric coming from some people on the right as well. So I'm just like,
Right.
that's why I was like, there's this chasm, and I think that chasm is gonna have to be broached. And another aspect of that chasm that I think is that you have this like globalism side of the Republican Party that was very, very much married to the idea of the UN, that was like very, very much married to the idea of the EU, so forth and so on. And then Trump comes in, and Trump was like, yeah, nah, I don't think so. I got questions about all of y'all. Why y'all ain't paying y'all fair share? Why we gotta pay so much? And then
Right.
you saw this pullback from a lot of Republicans who didn't like to hear those kinds of questions. And then it's people like me that was like, oh yes, ask more of those questions. I want to hear more answers about that. And then you have and I think that side of the equation of the Republican Party has forgot about the idea of federalism and the idea of local government. And this is what irks me so much about the apparatus as it stands. You can't ask black people to just vote every 4 years for a Republican candidate and not be putting candidates on their ballot to be able to run on there for city council and actually have Republican support within the state, within the local or county party, like really be there and be a part of the process. Like, you can't keep asking them for federal votes and not giving them some kind of local representation. And for a long time, that's what we've seen out of the Republican Party, is that they have their safe red districts that they run to, and they don't really care about fighting for anything else. And a lot of those districts are black districts, and that means we're never really presented a choice. They always ask, what's one thing a black person can't do in America that a white person can do? And my answer for that is vote down ticket for a Republican, because they're not on our ballots. So how
Yeah.
do you get the party to move back to what should be a fundamental principle of conservatism and the idea that local government should have the most power over the individual?
So, like, the good news on that is there is good news on that. I don't really think the party has control over that, and in some respects, it's a good thing. I think what's happening is you're finding just people in their own life deciding that they're going to run. Like, I'm going to run and do this. I want to go. I want to be elected to my school board. I want to be on my city council. Like, one of the tough things that's happening is you have a lot of people who are trying to become members of Congress, and they trying to be like, the old movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. They're just trying to run for Congress, and it's hard. And I don't, I did it too. I did it in 2012. I ran not really knowing much, and it was a hard situation to do, and I lost the race. But I learned a lot about politics and how to get elected, learned a lot about myself. But I think that people are just, they're getting sick and tired of it. They're throwing their hats in the ring. And I think that that's the best positive thing that's happened really in the country. The party has no control over that. The party is just because a lot of times the party, they recruit candidates in certain areas, but they don't recruit candidates nationwide. Most of that's just people. And I think you have a lot of people who are just fed up with what they're seeing, and they want a better way. They want to go about things in a different way, and they're just running and they're making their voices be known.
Yeah, and I know a lot of them that are in a position and locally that are doing that and that have their hand in the ring, but the point is they don't get any support. So like the party isn't sending people there to be able to help them to actually fundraise, and now they're in districts, minus 35 districts. Like these are not easy districts to sway, and they need help. And you can say that they're not attached to that, but that also means they're not being given information. They're not being given data. They're not having surrogates show up. They're not having the ability to run in a overwhelming district and have any real fighting chance. So that would be my only concern for that. And I'll let you have last word on that.
Well, look, I think you're right. And this is the thing about when I first started. It's my own personal advice. When I first started and I ran for office the first time, there was nobody to help me. I had to go to the supervisor's website and read how to qualify. I had to learn the political game from people who were just in the community about what door knocking was, what a call sheet is, what a walk book is, like how to raise money. And the truth is, the hardest thing for any new candidate is getting started and raising money, because there is no party establishment to help you. They don't really, typically they don't even come around until you get into the general election, especially if you have multiple Republicans. Now, I think that if you're talking about areas that are, dense urban areas, that's where I do think the party needs to do a better job of recruiting people, putting people on the ballot, and at a minimum trying to help them get an ability to get known in the area. But a lot of times the candidates, they got to raise the money themselves, and that's the one thing about this game that I can't stand. Raising money it's just hard. It's hard. It requires a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of networks. I mean, I remember when my first race, I raised, I think like $60,000 for a congressional race. It just didn't know how to do it. Really didn't know how. It just took years of constantly being engaged in my community where people were like, you know what? Okay, I can write them a check for $250 or $1,000 or whatever the case might be. And it was just a slow build over time.
Look, I could keep going. I want to keep going, but I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for giving us some time and coming here and chopping it up on Sonnie's Corner. And hopefully we could get the chance to chop it up again as 2024 gets closer and closer.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Sonnie, real talk. I do follow you on Twitter. I love your Twitter. Your Twitter's funny and awesome. So, anytime,
okay.
good
All
to
right.
be on, and I'll be back.
If I could do one more, I was going to ask you that. I was going to be like, because all the other Republicans run for me. And I was like, okay, so you follow me and you still came to Sonnie's Corner. So I was literally going to ask you why you make that, because like Vivek is still running for me. So I'm like, I was just wondering what would make you say yes.
I'm gonna answer you the way I answered a reporter who asked me if I was scared about retribution in front of the Capitol. Sonny, I'm 6'2", 275. Like I don't run. It's like my advisor on my campaign. We're really good friends, and he jokes with people all the time. They'll be like, "Man, Byron he just went on Meet the Press like it's nothing." And he's like, "We're not scared." He was like, we know what we know, and we believe what we believe, and we just go out and we talk about it. And if we disagree, that's fine. But I'll go anywhere,
Yo,
talk to anybody, any given time. Because I'm really passionate about this. I know you're passionate about it, so that's why when I saw the message, I said, "Oh yeah, we're definitely doing this."
oh my goodness, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and they made me feel good. I'm gonna be geeking over this one. Thank you so much, Byron Donalds. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna come back and chop it up some more right here on Sonny's Corner.